Welcome to Psych Sessions Careers, a podcast about how students can identify and prepare for careers that fit their unique interests and how instructors can help. I'm your host, Stacey Spencer. Whether you're a student trying to figure out what you'll do with your undergraduate psychology degree, an instructor who's looking to add to what you're already doing to support career preparation, or an instructor who wants to help but doesn't know where to start, these conversations are for you. Let's talk about careers. Hi, Karen Naufel. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm very good. I'm very excited to be talking with you today. This has taken some time for us to find a moment that you're available. You're a very, very busy person.
It can seem like that sometimes. So, but
ever since I've known you, it seemed like that. All right, Karen Naufel, you're at Georgia Southern University.
Yes.
You are a professor of psychology.
Yes.
Tell me more about being a professor of psychology at Georgia Southern. Tell me about the courses you teach, a little bit about your background, your PhD, all of that.
So I have been at Georgia Southern for 16 years, and I teach a lot of different classes. One of my favorites to teach is I teach Introduction to Psychology, and then I also teach the capstone course at the undergraduate level. So I always like to say that I get the students at the beginning and the end.
I love that.
And I also teach graduate level research design, and I teach seminar and teaching at the graduate level for the master's students, health psychology, and a whole lot of others throughout the years, sprinkled here and there. So I've taught some cognitive. Used to teach a class called Psychology of Evil, a whole bunch of different things.
Wow, Psychology of Evil. I love that. Okay, and your PhD?
My PhD was at University of Arkansas, and I got it in experimental psychology, and I had a social cognition focus.
Oh, yeah. Now I know why we get along so well. So many similar interests, social cognition, health, all of that, research, teaching. Wonderful. And let's go back to this. You get to see the students at the beginning and the end. Faculty, professors who have that opportunity, it's the greatest. It's so rewarding. You see them in the beginning and you look at them and you're like, oh, wow, they're at the beginning of a long journey. Then you see them at the end, you're so proud of how far they've come in that time. So I love that. All right. Now, one of the reasons you're so busy is because you're very involved with the American Psychological Association. I don't know if you want to go in reverse chronological order, if you want to start from the beginning, but you've been involved with some of the most important working groups, task forces, just so many different groups that have provided wonderful resources for teachers of psychology. So I'm going to let you decide how to tell all of that.
Oh, wow. I mean, first off, I love working with that type of work. It's one of my favorite things to do. Let's see here. Right now, I'm on the Board of Educational Affairs. And prior to that, I was on the Committee of Associate Baccalaureate Education, and where we got to explore critical issues in undergraduate psychology. And I love that so much because I had primarily am at a 4-year institution, and I have graduate degrees, or we have graduate degrees here too. But that really opened my eyes to the 2-year institution and what that entails and how important those pathways are from 2-year to 4-year. And so that one was pretty special. I've also done Introductory Psychology Initiative, the student success. I was on the student success group with that. And recently the undergraduate guidelines 3.0, which I'm really excited about. And it was amazing working with Jane and everyone on there. That was that was an amazing group. So yeah, we're very excited to see it out.
But before those two projects, there's also you're part of the assessment group, right?
I was on the assessment group, the Summit for, SNAP, Summit for the National Assessment of Psychology. Yeah, that's actually how it got started into a lot of the stuff with APA. Is I was the program coordinator at the time for the undergraduate program, and I needed to learn how to do assessment And our team at Georgia Southern had been developing some measures together. And so when I saw that call come through, I was like, these are my people. We got together.
Yeah.
So yeah.
All great groups of people, and a fair amount of overlap in those groups. Really, really wonderful, hardworking people who give so much time. And each of those projects have resulted in lots of resources for people. So you talk about Guidelines 3.0, very excited to have that. Just came out. Well, I shouldn't timestamp this in any way, but excited that it came out because I think that's such an important document. People who don't know about, we call it Guidelines 3.0. The long title is Guidelines for the Guidelines.
The American Psychological Association Guidelines for the Undergraduate Major 3.0. So,
yes.
And now people know why we shorten it.
That's right. That's what we call 3.0. Yeah. And I love that there is a 3.0 that there's this systematic review and revision that happens on a regular basis. So that's really good. Intro to Psych Initiative, wonderful book. We used that to guide us through the process of revising our own Intro to Psych course. And then when we have project assessment through APA, you can create an account and you can see all these wonderful assessment tools that came from SNAP, right?
That's right. And you can contribute to them too, which I think is great.
Yeah.
So that's always evolving, always building. So
I love that. Let's talk about how we met.
All right. Yeah, that's one working group that haven't discussed.
Mm-hmm.
So Stacy and I we met through another working group through the Committee on Associate Baccalaureate Education, CABE, it was called the Skillful Psychology Working Group.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I think that started in 2016.
I do. And it was, I don't think we published the Skillful Psychology Student document until 2018, right?
That's
right. It was the fall of 2018 it came out, which was really exciting. So we want to talk a little bit about, because you were on CABE at the time, right? You were a member? No.
I was not.
But so, during the process, you became. So our original fearless leader, Aaron Richmond, started the process, and you took us to that final end stage of the working group process.
Yeah, Aaron Richmond was the chair at first and initiated it and got us all together. And then when he became the chair of CABE, it transitioned to me. So
yeah. That was quite an experience, that working group. I mean, we took that very seriously, identifying the skills that our psychology majors have that are valued by employers. So thinking about what are we doing that prepares our students well to go out into the world of work, and not just specifically into the kinds of careers that people think about or assume psychology majors are going to pursue.
Yeah, I always appreciate the document as one of those things where it wasn't like we invented these skills, but it was just this amazing way to show, like, hey, look, here in the guidelines, which was Guidelines 2.0 at the time, like, these are the things that students are learning. And then to tie them to the language that employers are using, it provided that nice pathway, like, see, we are prepping our students, or we do have the potential to prep our students to go into the workforce. And so that working on the skills was, it was truly an honor to get to have that role,
right,
and to help make those connections. And so it was a really, really important thing. It felt important to me. So
one of the things I loved about it is that we took 3 different approaches to getting to that end point. So for me, I love looking at surveys. I like organizing results of different studies and looking for commonalities. That very much was, something that made me excited. So that was the way I approached the question. What are these skills that we know the employers are going to value? Well, we get that from employer survey information and pulling that together. Your approach was very different from that. And your approach did go to Guidelines 3.0. So you kind of went from the other direction, right? So tell me a little bit more about that.
So when we were pulling together the data, and so you and I and Jay Van Kirk and everyone were pulling together the data, one of the things that I did was I chose the path where I looked at the guidelines and I looked at the attributes that were listed within the guidelines to see how frequently they were coming up in employers' job descriptions. And one of the things that was happening is like some of the attributes that were listed in the guidelines were popping up a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And then some, it was like, no one is talking about this. This is, it's important, yes, but it's not one of those skills that employers are using that language or talking about it that way. So it fell, and it provided some insight, particularly in other areas of like, okay, if we really want to say that psychology is prepping people for careers, we really need to pay attention to the language that people in careers are using. And so, so it was it was an interesting and eye-opening thing. And I have my students do that sometimes, just kind of look and see. And you and I and Jay and Aaron, we have that paper out on it that talks about those methods and the method matters. And so Scholarship of Teaching and Learning in Psychology. And it was, yeah.
I really appreciated learning about the different methods or hearing the different approaches, the way you and Jay each kind of envisioned, how are we going to do that? And then the rest of the committee as well. So yeah, we had a great group. We had some lively conversations, but what was really, I think, encouraging and in some ways relieving is the overlap. Is seeing there's this consistency. Doesn't matter which direction you take to try to answer this question. We're coming up with the same general domains of skills. And then within those, there are some variations in the language. How do employers talk about those skills? One example I like to give a lot is in the cognitive domain. So cognitive skills include a variety of things, but we think critical thinking and problem solving. And you see that some employers prefer some, a lot of them will say problem solving, others say the ability to think critically. And so we get it down a little bit to that with some examples of the way employers might be describing those kinds of skills.
Yeah, yes. And I agree, like in terms of agreement, it was interesting because we had 9 people on the group?
It was big.
A lot. But we were coming together. So we would each do our own roles. And then when we would come together, it was interesting to see how we collaborated and were able to organize all of our information in a meaningful way and how students could understand or instructors could understand. And even though there was discussion, there was also so much agreement on what was important. And I know that some of the things that we discussed really influenced like how the guidelines were shaped in the future. And so it was a really meaningful time. And so
I would agree. So for listeners who don't know the Skillful Psychology Student, the skills are organized into 5 domains: the cognitive domain, communication domain, personal domain, social, and technological domain. I have to say them in alphabetical order. That's the way they appear, and that's how my brain works. So in no particular order except alphabetical, that's the list. What's interesting is across those 5 domains, we have 17 skills. And that was an interesting conversation as well, because I think our task was to identify the top 20. Do you recall that conversation?
Very much. Yeah. We were supposed to identify the 20.
Yeah. It's like, but we can't.
Yeah.
We can't. Do we just give 3 more, even though we know they're not really showing up? We just couldn't find other things that were showing up as consistently as the 17 we found. So we're also very confident in the 17 that this is what it looks like.
Yeah. Yes. I remember those conversations and how would we organize it? And yes. And we wanted it to be easy to see and read and understand. So
and apply. And there's lots of different ways that I know people are using the Skillful Psychology Student. We're going to talk about how you use it in a little bit. Do you mind waiting?
I can wait. Yes.
Okay. All right. Let's go back to your university. Can you tell me a little bit about Georgia Southern and what it would be like maybe to be a psychology major at Georgia Southern?
Sure. So Georgia Southern University is we have in our department roughly 1,000 undergraduate majors. We also have a master's program in experimental psychology and a PsyD program as well. And then our master's program also has the experimental side and then the ABA side as well. One of the interesting things about Georgia Southern University is that we actually have 3 campuses that are all about an hour away from each other. Mm-hmm. And so we have a psych department on the Statesboro campus, which is where I'm at. Then we have a psych department on the Armstrong campus, and we're all part of the same department, but there's a whole other campus in Savannah called Armstrong. And then there's a whole other campus at Liberty too, that offers a psychology program as well. And instructors commute to that one to teach, or we teach online, remote synchronous format. So students actually can take classes at all 3 of us, and it counts all just the same. So we meet together as faculty in person 2 times a year, and then meet virtually or hybrid the rest of the year. All our policies and things are the same across all the campuses, but each campus does have its own unique flavor, unique history, and so on. So it makes it very fun. It makes it for the students, they have lots of different opportunities or pathways, because we have a clinical program, we have an experimental program, we have ABA, and so they can get a taste of different perspectives and different ideas of what they can do with their career as they go forward. So
does your department have an introduction to the psychology major course or a careers course?
We do have a careers course. It's called Careers, Ethics, and Professionalism. And so it encompasses all of those things. So they talk about different careers in those courses. They also integrate ethics into the course, and then professional development as well.
And what do you put in that category of professional development? When you say professional development, what does that mean for you?
So professional development includes a lot of the skills that are actually on the Skillful Psychology Student. Some of the things include things like self-regulation. So it's one thing to say, okay, you got to get everything in on time. It's another to also like teach how do you do that? How do you avoid procrastination? Right. There's things like how do you present yourself to a potential employer? How do you write an email? We talk about that a lot. How do you write an email? And it's not a course that I teach, but I know the colleagues that do teach it, and I love chatting with them about it. So they have a really good course. Where
does the course sit in the curriculum? At what point in that major would a student be taking that course?
It is encouraged that they take it at a 2000 in their sophomore year. So it's a 2000 level course. So it should be taken around their sophomore year. They can take it anytime after they take introductory psychology. So sometimes we have students taking it later, but it's intended to be done more at the second year level.
It's a difficult decision figuring out exactly where to put it, but given the content, I think the sophomore year sounds really good, because some of the things are some basic concepts that they're going to take with them as they continue exploring courses that they're interested in, but also recognizing the importance of the skills as they're going through the curriculum. And then there's going to be opportunities for presenting themselves and writing emails to potential employers even before they graduate. So that's great that they have all of that at that particular point.
Yeah. Yes. And then when I have students come to capstone, it's nice because they have a lot of those skills. Sometimes we need refreshing or something like that. And I mean, that's the whole point of a curriculum, is for constantly reinforcing material. But they have typically had that information before. So it's not hard if I say like, okay, you're going to need to contact someone in the community to ask this question. There's not the like, how do I do that? It's there's confidence there that can go do this. And so I feel lucky because it makes my job a lot more fun because I get to see the joy.
Yeah, you get to see, oh,
Yeah.
look, they're ready. Someone else prepared them for this. This is awesome. This is wonderful. What is your capstone course like? What does that look like? Is it very professionally oriented, or is it more traditional library review of a topic? Can you tell me about your capstone?
Sure. So I'm going to credit Jane Hallinan and Dana Dunn because they inspired a lot of this capstone. And then I want to also credit the undergraduate curriculum committee. When we were designing this course, it was actually in a committee effort about what should this course look like.
Mm-hmm.
And so when we were initially designing it, about 7 days before the pandemic happened and we shut down, I remember us being in the room and trying to stay apart as we were talking about this. But we were trying to think of ways of, okay, we have this capstone course. We have a new curriculum that we were putting through. What should this course really look like? And we wanted to make sure that it integrated the 5 goals of the APA guidelines. We wanted to really have that fundamental knowledge and integrating that, and research and scientific inquiry and critical thinking, and professional development, communication, and ethics and social responsibility. And so what we decided to do is that we decided that students would come in and identify a problem or a need that they had learned about in their other classes. And then they would do peer-reviewed lit reviews on that need. And then together, they would use psychology to come up with a way to potentially solve that problem.
Mm-hmm.
And then they would present it and to get feedback. And I am always just wowed and humbled by what students come up with. And so I've taught the class about a lot now, late since it started. And students are so adept at identifying, like, they see the need, and then like the creative ways that they engage in trying to solve the problem. It's just really heartwarming, the graduates that we're sending out into the world.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I love that. I love those opportunities for them to solve problems. We've talked about that in some of our other conversations. That's, I think, really important to frame things for students, that this content that we're providing is fantastic. Now, what does it mean? And I think the best way is for them to think about their world and what are the problems out there? What are the decisions that they need to make out there? And so what a great opportunity for them. What a great exercise in identifying and then making evidence-informed decisions. What do we know from psychology that we can take into solving this problem? Great. Let me ask you, in terms of your own life, was there a time at which somebody asked you to declare at a very young age what you were going to be when you grew up?
I'm pretty sure, yeah, like when I was 3.
And it was to be a professor of psychology.
Oh, no.
Who taught intro to psych, who got very involved, taught intro to psych and capstone and research methods for graduate students. No, really, what did your 3-year-old self say? Do you recall?
So a nurse. So my mom was a nurse, and so I wanted to be like her, a nurse. And I always loved healthcare, and I remember mom just knowing how to do everything when I was sick, and she like knew exactly, like, oh, here it's X, Y, and Z, and I knew I remember being very young and in preschool wanting to be a nurse early on. So. Yeah.
And then when did that change?
It changed so much. I'm trying to think. I know at one point I wanted to be a chef. And I really and that was probably middle school. And then I really got into, I wanted to be a doctor, a physician. And in high school. And I remember there was this women in science symposium, and it was an overnight thing. And so you got to go to Oklahoma University for this, and you could stay overnight. And they only took 2 girls from the school. and I was selected to go. I was asked if I wanted to go, and so was another person, and we went, and they showed us medical research. And I was blown away. I remember because I had no idea like what research really entailed, and they were just showing me just cool stuff. And I remember going back through and looking through the course catalog for college because I was a senior in high school and I had the course catalog for Arkansas. I was going through,
You're ready.
I was ready, and I was circling every class that had research in the name, and I was ready to go. So I remember the research aspect just being something really exciting to me. I also really love social work a lot. And I was always community service oriented, and I got a lot of that from my father. Was very community service oriented. And so I was very interested in that aspect as well. And so I was looking at those, but I changed my major a lot in college. So trying to figure out what I wanted to do. And
were those official major changes or just kind of in your head? Like, I think I'll do this. No, I think I'll do that. Were you literally changing your major with a registrar or just kind of playing around with ideas?
I feel like I filled out a lot of forms. I remember filling out a lot of forms. I'm not sure how many were official or not, but I remember filling out a lot of forms in college. But I was always taking psychology classes, and I was always doing research in psychology.
Right.
So, but I do remember, like, I even know where on campus those forms were, and they were paper, and so, but
well, I'm just trying to think of at the undergraduate level, what were all these research courses and what departments were offering them? Because at my institution, students think that science is biology and chemistry, which there are, obviously we do science and biology and chemistry, but interestingly enough, their coursework is about, just observations and doing things in a lab that someone has designed for them, as opposed to when we think of science and research, we think about asking a question and answering it in a very different way from what they're doing in a laboratory setting. And so it's interesting when I get students in my research methods course who are not psychology majors, the minors can take research methods. And it's the first time they've actually been exposed to reading a research article. Not all of them, but many of them. And we talk about, well, what is research? What does that mean to do science? And did you have those moments where you were an undergraduate thinking, well, this is science, I'm in a laboratory, and then comparing that to, but here I'm learning about research methodology?
Yeah, I kind of feel like that high school experience exposed me to a lot in my mindset. I don't know, it's been way too long ago, but I do remember the first day of class, I was in biology, and I remember going to my professor and asking him about his research and like, what are you doing? Like, tell me everything. and we met, and and I'm looking back now and I'm like, wow, like first year students don't usually do that. but I don't know, I've always been different. But we sat down, and I remember him telling me about, like, what he was investigating and the questions he was trying to answer. And I had a microbiology professor kind of do the same thing. And so I don't know. In the psychology, I remember taking psychology in high school, AP psychology. And I always thought it was a science, and I was devastated to find out that it didn't count as one. and I remember one of my friends and I, we were asking our one of our professors about, or not professors, teachers about it. And we were saying, like, why wouldn't this count as it? So I'm not really sure if I had that exact experience, but I know that like some of the experiences that I got in high school were really like, science is about answering questions and finding a way.
Yeah.
And so,
I love that you're in high school and you're like part of the charge for psychological science, right? That's like,
I was so
we
confused.
are a science. Yes.
I was so confused because I'm like, I think there's some mistake.
Right.
Yeah. So
if you were able to change your major so much, does that mean that you were not in a family that was holding you to your proclamation to be a nurse? Like they weren't saying, you said you were going to be a nurse. They were very comfortable with you changing your mind, and there was no family identity for you about what you were going to be.
No. They wanted me to do something that I enjoyed and liked. And there were certain things they thought that I would be good at. And so those were suggested to me along the way. And looking back, I kind of wish I had pursued one of them within the context of psychology. So my dad always said that I would be an excellent engineer. And I always wanted to, help the world and help people, and the cliches, and so I was like, I don't want to do engineering. And then when I found out about human factors, like to this day, I'm like, that would have been the path for me. Like I see it now. And so that was one of them. And then that I always looked into, like, business was often encouraged just to have a backup plan. And in my mind just does not think like that. And so, or it didn't at the time. And so I just didn't have the interest. I did have interest in marketing because that's psychology. But in terms of like a strict business major, that was not one that I changed to. So there wasn't a parental pressure. There were suggestions about, like, this is what we think you might be good at, and but they were always supportive of whatever I came home and said I was doing that week. So
to me, those are two really interesting examples that if we were to have students listening, hopefully some students are listening, to think about as applications of psychology that we often don't think about. So human factors is the human in the world of engineering. When we're developing, creating, engineering things, we do need the people who are focusing on, I like to think of it as the user end, but the person that this has been designed for or around, and so very important. And you don't need to be an engineering major to then later contribute to that process by way of what we call human factors.
Yes. And I started, and only recently, within the past few years, and my partner is an engineer, and so that's probably where I'm like seeing this intersect and how we communicate with each other, just like, figuring out, well, where should we put the sink if we remodel and things like that. It's kind of amazing how psychology plays such a role in that, and it's important. So
we see that with technology a lot, that there are platforms out there, there are apps, there are tools that we use on a regular basis. And some are so well designed for the person, and others you're frustrated. You're like, wait, why are we doing it this way? It could be so much easier if. And that's where I think that, someone dropped the ball. They didn't really spend enough time on the human side of it. So we see that with technology. And then you talked about business. So much of business is about the people, either the people who are going to buy or use the product that is being, contributed by way of that business, whatever that business is doing. That psychology plays a role in so many aspects of it. Everything from hiring people, managing people, leading people, getting the most out of groups of people who are working in a business to what that business does. You mentioned marketing as one aspect of business, but we think about organizational psychology as a great way. Psychology, you can go through the psych path to get to that business world. So if you really love psychology, I think the fun challenge, not challenge in a bad way, but the exciting challenge is, what are the applications of these parts of psychology you love so much? And how can you bring that to these other professional worlds that probably make a lot more sense professionally to family and friends than straight psychology? But now we have to bridge that gap. Why did you major in psychology if you were going to do something related to engineering? You should have gone to engineering school. Well, no. Let me explain. Psychology comes in this way. So the fun challenge, I think.
Yes.
Yeah. All right. You want to play a little game?
Sure.
Okay. Given that you're this,
Okay.
I consider you a skills expert because you contributed so much to the Skillful Psychology Student. So what I've done is I found 4 job opportunities in your area, within 50 miles, 50 miles of your university.
Okay.
Okay. I didn't know how far out to go.
Okay.
I don't know Georgia. I don't know Georgia very well to know how far you have to go from a particular location to make sure you're encompassing. But I thought 50 miles is fair. So I have 4 different job opportunities. They are bachelor level job opportunities. I'm going to tell you a little bit about each. After I tell you about one, I'm going to ask you, what do you think the skills are that they want someone to have? So skills that are listed in the job description for this opportunity. Does that make sense?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
All right. Let's start with one. So this is a behavior support coach. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about what a behavior support coach does.
Okay.
They act as a resource person in a classroom. And in doing so, they address serious verbal and physical behaviors of students. They apply strategies related to crisis intervention. They apply progressive verbal and nonverbal de-escalation strategies to effectively de-escalate potentially serious behavioral incidents. They assist in collecting data regarding student behavior and recommend appropriate behavioral strategies. And they assist in developing successful behavior intervention plans and in their implementation. There are other things that they do, but I think that's enough for us to be thinking about what are the skills that this employer might have included in the job description.
I would guess communication would be up there.
Yes. Oral and written communication there in the job description. You are correct.
So in both sense, especially if they're preparing reports, I would guess also some judgment and decision-making or problem-solving skills is probably listed somewhere as well, given that.
They actually didn't list that. And I was a little bit surprised that they didn't include that.
Well, I'll list it.
But I would say if someone were to apply for this job, I think that would be something they would say about themselves, that they should say about themselves, because you have to make decisions in these situations. Anything else? There's a couple of other things in here.
So let's see here. With that one, probably being able to adapt to various situations, just based on what you described. So adaptability or some type of synonym of that. Time management or self-regulation probably seems like a big one. If they're preparing reports, I'd assume collaboration is listed.
Collaboration is listed. The other ones weren't specifically listed, but definitely being able to, and now they didn't say collaboration, but they said work successfully with other professionals.
Yeah. So work successfully with other professionals. So I would think that one would be in there. So
part of the social domain of skills in the Skillful Psychology Student. And they have organizational skills. So, someone being organized. What's interesting is, given the reports, data collection, even if it's not listed as a skill, we know that students leave a psychology major with data skills, that they understand data collection and they understand data reporting. So again, even if it's not in the job description, it's something that would be beneficial to mention in applying for a job like this, because that's something that's listed as a responsibility.
Yes.
And I'm curious, I don't know, it's always dangerous to talk about salaries when salaries vary so much from one region of a country to another, so there's a certain amount of variability there. Within your area, what do you think because this actually has a salary range posted, where do you think this sits in terms of a starting salary?
I actually am not sure, because it depends on which area it's in, if it's in Savannah or Statesboro, because those
interesting. There's that much variation between those locations. Yeah,
I'm not sure.
Okay. So if you're not comfortable answering, that's fine. If you're not, I will tell you, it's a fairly broad range. It's $39,000 to $61,000 a year.
Right. I was going to say 50,000.
There you go. There you go.
Yeah.
And I mean, I believe I always like to grab the full description. I don't see, it's probably in here about benefits. I had the conversation with my students today about don't just look at the salary. Also consider the benefits, but I can't tell you the benefits for that job. All right. You did very, very well. Here we have a Safe Kids program coordinator. And this, I wrote a big question here. Do you think any of your students would be interested in facilitating injury prevention programs and activities for children? I do. I don't know why I decided to write that question right on this description, but I'm just curious. So that's what this is. This is a position where someone would be facilitating injury prevention programs and activities for children. The age range is actually, I think they said, infant to 19. So the full range. But does that sound like something that students in your psych major would be interested in?
We would probably have a few that are interested in that, or several. We have a lot of people who are interested in working with kids in general.
Right. So here we've got kids. We've got things that have to do with prevention and promotion. So for people from health psychology, we love those words.
Yes.
Right. And that's right up our alley. I see that and I'm all excited. Okay. So someone in this position is responsible for developing, implementing, and evaluating high quality programs and events that support the strategic plan initiatives around safety. They support coalition members, donors, and work in collaboration to achieve desired outcomes. And they're responsible for building and maintaining existing partnerships. And yeah, those are the primary. I mean, there's individual descriptions within each of those big categories of responsibilities, but I think that gives you an idea, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, actually, I did have a couple of things highlighted. Some keywords here that might help you with skills. Provide innovative and measurable programming.
Oh, okay.
Engage in program research and development. Develop and deliver quality presentations. Assist with conference and planning activities. Support the marketing and public relations activities, such as the development of promotional items, newsletters, abstracts, articles, brochures, website content, and on-camera opportunities.
Oh, wow.
All right. So what are they looking for?
Well, definitely communication all around, I would presume. It also sounds like there's be a lot of collaboration and teamwork. So they're probably looking for someone who can work cooperatively and work well with others. Yes. The entire cognitive domain, I think, was probably hit on that. Just
right.
Problem solving, critical thinking, innovation is creativity, information management, locating and organizing sources. So we have a lot of that as well. I'm guessing probably some ethics in there, or integrity and adaptability, some personal skills. Oh, they didn't have that.
They didn't include those words, which is interesting. I'm a little bit surprised, given the nature of the work, that they wouldn't specifically articulate that. But no.
So, yeah. And I'm trying to think if there's any. I had a few of the big domains. Leadership and management would probably be very big ones there as well.
Yeah. And then the evaluation skills. But you had that in the information management and stuff. Ability to work effectively under deadlines. So definitely in the time management aspect. Yeah. Yes. So that's really good. I'm looking here. I can't tell you about the salary, but I can tell you that they have great benefits. So always good to know. Again, wanting to remind people that bachelor level jobs, this is something that you will have. You will have benefits with these positions. I mean, I'm only pulling full-time positions. So to be clear there. All right. Time for one or two more.
Sure.
One thing that's come up in several interviews is academic advising.
Ah, yes.
At universities. I love that people can do that with a bachelor's degree. In this particular situation, it would be a pre-med health profession advising. But I think I saw some other advising opportunities as well in your area. And so we know that involves advising students on academic requirements. I think students listening and faculty listening know what an academic advisor does. I don't know how much detail I need to go into, but conducting regular reviews of professional school requirements. So supporting students in knowing this is what the current expectations are, making sure that the program revisions are made in preparing students for those opportunities, those graduate programs. Coordinating information and interest sessions to provide information to students who are interested in that professional pathway of going into the health professions. Supporting students in setting goals and identifying challenges that might negatively impact their student success. So the usual things we would think of. So what kinds of skills?
So I would definitely say communication again. So that seems like to be a very big one in that position. I'm guessing some analytical thinking skills like attend to details or conscientiousness is probably listed. Planning skills kept coming up. So planning is a part of that skill as well. So I'd imagine that. Since there is a lot of coordination involved in academic advising, I would guess work effectively as a team came up, or cooperation came up. Time management and probably came up as well, and work effectively under deadlines is probably there. I'm also wondering if is there technology skills listed on that one with academic advising? But
well, we know the technology skills are important because, it does say develop and maintain student files and records, which we know would be through whatever platform or applications the institution uses. So yeah.
Yeah, I was just thinking like, because I think I know this position. So, academic advising.
And did you mention ethics? I don't remember for this one. I know you mentioned ethics for another one, but
I did not mention ethics.
Yeah.
About it. Yes, absolutely.
And following regulations, the law around, what you can share about students. So what's interesting about this position is that they don't list anything other than bachelor's degree with 1 or more years of related work experience. They do say preferred would be a master's degree, but it doesn't list individual qualifications or skills. To that point, everything you named would be really important for students to discuss if they're applying for the position, because we know that's what will make someone successful. So back to the skillful psychology student, just identifying what are the strengths I have from this list and thinking through, talk about critical thinking. It's not in the job description. Here's the important critical thinking piece. Look at that job description and say, well, what would I need to be successful in this? And think about and this is the one thing about getting this job with a bachelor's degree. Most people who have done that have met with an academic advisor. They do know something about what happens in those appointments. Yes. So very good. We've got, let's just do one more. I really like this one because it's different and it's related to something we were talking about before. Okay. Do you know what EPIC is? The EPIC system? Are you familiar with EPIC?
It depends, because I know EPIC in a couple of different contexts.
Okay. So in healthcare.
Okay, I do.
Okay. So there are several different patient record systems out there, and EPIC is one of them. Okay. So this position is an EPIC system educator. An EPIC system educator. All right. Okay. So this person is responsible for it actually in the instructions, are you passionate about the patient experience? So it's really pushing that point of the patient experience. And so they're committed to making sure that patients have a good experience. And I just want to give me 1 second to get down to the list. Okay. So this individual leads and executes the development and maintenance of EPIC training materials, including ongoing establishment of training products, best practices, and governance requirements, and the validation acceptance criteria to analyze usage. Wow, that's a lot. That is a lot. Yeah. Development of training, and then making sure that they're analyzing the usage appropriately. Developing course content, training materials, agendas, lesson plans, and presentation materials. Working with project teams, subject matter experts, clients, and business owner. Responsible for course instruction, including classroom, live, virtual, and web-based training. There are other aspects of it, but I think that really captures the core of it. So this is somebody who'd be responsible for teaching people how to do something, how to use Epic. And because you also have an interest in teaching and learning like I do, I mean, it's what we do, but thinking from cognitive psychology and human development and all of the courses that students take that inform them about how we learn and know and process information, that skills, that knowledge base plus skills would be great for this position.
Definitely.
Anyone who's thought about being a teacher but decides I don't want to be in the classroom, this is a way of being a teacher without being in the classroom.
There are teachers everywhere.
There are. And I think these are really interesting opportunities. So in terms of skills, let's go again. What do you think? And they actually said things that are directly mapped onto the skills.
I would say collaboration for sure.
Yes, that's the first thing. Team player is the first bullet point.
Communication as well. Oral and written are probably, I don't know how you could be an educator without them. So they're good. I'm not sure if they said this, but it was in that question, but service orientation, because they were asking about do you care about the patient experience? And that is really that's a big part of service orientation, is that patient focus. So that might be something to address.
Yeah, they have respects diversity of each individual and is flexible in adapting to individual needs.
I was going inclusivity is definitely something there. And then I hope that they do have a lot of the cognitive skills listed as well. Like
they do.
The organizing information and problem solving, attending to details, and being innovative and resourceful. I hope that, and I'm guessing probably integrity is there as well. So being ethical and honest and accountable. So those are my guesses. I think it actually might be harder to find skills that aren't on that list.
That's right. I mean, I'm trying to count really quickly. I think there are 20 plus skills listed underneath the description of the position. So all of the things someone needs to be able to do. So really well articulated by the employer. But in looking at it, I don't see that they've missed anything that we would have included on the Skillful Psychology Student. And obviously, this is a great one for the technology one, that ability to be adaptable, flexible around different forms of technology and helping other people be that way. That's really what this job is, helping other people adapt to a new form of technology and thinking through problem solving creatively. How can I help people do that? I thought that was a really cool and different kind of application of psychology knowledge and skills at a fairly high level. And I see great benefits, not seeing the salary. I don't think here. I'm just always curious about that part because I want people to know. I think there's this misperception that if you do try to get a job with a bachelor's degree, you won't make any money. But these are jobs. And I think also when my students will talk about early on, because trust me, by the end of their second year, they know better. But early on thinking, well, I can't do anything. I won't make any money is a pretty strong statement. And so I think the skills help them identify jobs that they are qualified for when they graduate. And those jobs being things that will contribute to a happy lifestyle.
Yes.
And it's a starting point when you graduate. We're not talking about what they're going to do 10, 15 years from now. We're talking about really great ways to launch out into the world.
That's true. Very true.
Yeah. All right. In the interest of time, I know I played that game for quite a while, but I'm curious, is there an activity or an assignment that you really love that you do with your students that you would like to share?
That
is related to skills. Yes. On this topic.
On this topic. One of the things that I really like, and I do this in my capstone class, is that throughout the entire semester, we always have skill of the week. We always have, and we talk about different content related to it and how it's going with their projects and things along those lines. But at the very end of the year, one of the things that we do is I have them look for a job according to the skills that they think are the most developed. And they find that job, and then they have to talk about like how they have that skill. So they're writing like mini little cover letters, talking about like, okay, well, in this class, I developed the skill here, or in the undergraduate program, I developed the skill here. And it's really fun. And one of the things that I like about it is that approach broadens their job search.
Yes.
And so they start seeing that they can do a lot of things with psychology. And it's actually better to search according to skill instead of just psychology, because they start seeing a lot more things. That's been one of my favorite activities, I think, just for the realization. And it's also their capstone. And so it's like, I get to see like them. It's like I get them at the beginning and the end. So I get to see the progress and how they accomplish all of these skills. And so it's just fun. So.
I love that. I love that you're doing skill of the week, because it's constantly putting it there. Let's talk about what the skill of the week is and what that skill entails, and what it might look like and how you might demonstrate that, I'm sure, is part of what that all is. And then thinking about themselves, and is this one of my strengths? I love the way of looking for jobs from the direction of skills. I tell my students when they're looking for jobs, they should not put the word psychology in, that they're actually limiting themselves in a lot. So and my question then is, you're doing it in capstone. Do you imagine that someone could do that in a content course?
Oh, absolutely. So they can, I usually teach capstone, so it's always fresh in my mind, but any class. And so I know, for instance, like Ginger Wicklund always puts skills on her syllabi. And like in those classes, we could have students like connect this skill that you're getting in this class to a job out there, so they could do it anywhere.
They could even do that to the content area, even if that's not a content area that lights them up the most. But they could, by way of sharing with each other, be identifying, hey, wait, we developed these skills in this class, and look at the diverse jobs out there, but also look at the things specific to this content area. I think that would be really cool.
Yeah. And I do that in my intro. I don't have them do it as an assignment, but I present it like, here are some jobs that relate to the things that we're learning about that a person could get with a bachelor's degree. And just to provide that frame of reference so that they can see that psychology is mental health, but it's also so much more. And so, yeah. And
that's the real challenge, is getting them past that. But I do think there's something so magical about when they start looking at job descriptions, because all the abstract of what these jobs are now becomes real.
Yes.
In the sense of, but this is all they said. They didn't say I had to be the master of all knowledge related to something. No, you don't. What they really want is for you to be able to do these things for them. And psychology has prepared you in so many wonderful ways to do those things. Plus, you bring knowledge with you. So, well, this has been so much fun. Is there anything else you would like to? But actually, back to students. Let's say a student is listening and they don't have a professor who is doing this in the class. How would you? Yeah, go ahead. I love that face. Yeah.
They can do it. Like, everyone has the internet. Well, at least most people do, or go to the public library and search engines, look for these jobs.
And pull up the Skillful Psychology Student.
Yep. And pull up the Skillful Psychology Student and look and compare, and they can do it on their own. And I also want to put a plug in for, if you're doing service learning, or if you're working while doing these jobs, like, draw attention to this when you're talking with other people about what you do, because I guarantee that whatever job you're in, or anyone is in, these skills are being utilized. And psychology, I love it so much, because we kind of have this, we have an advantage in that we research the stuff. So,
yeah.
I'm a little biased, but yeah. And so bring it up, like, oh yeah, I learned about teamwork in my psychology major. To just draw attention to what psychology can do.
Love it. Thank you so much. This was so much fun for me.
It was fun. Thank you for having me.
All right. Thanks.